Well, what an interesting thing. So I got a comment today from Mac Povey. Hopefully I'm saying it right. But the comment actually says, what exactly are we if not our bank account, achievements, etc.? Everybody is saying we are not those things. Okay, then what are we? Character, spirit, and if so, how can we tell if it has a decent amount of value, impact in the community or not? And thank you so much for this comment. This comment actually has to do with a video on male value that I did. And I actually love making these more cinematic videos. They just take a lot of time, and I am doing a lot of things. Like I coach full time. I am maxed out with everything, and I'm so grateful for it. But at the same time, I want to address how important this is, because what's always been a little bit unique about me and my take in coaching, and of course, respect all the other coaches out there doing good work. We have our different attributes and whatnot, but it has always been that there is a deeper value to things. And even when it comes to dating and sex and so on, when it comes to divorce and custody, there's a greater value that we need to go for. What's important, which comes through, and my groups have been around, I've been coaching since 2006. My online communities have existed and never stopped having calls. It's never broken. For every week since 2009, we've always had calls and a community that's sustained. It's important to understand where we're at. So the value of you is so much, and it comes down to your very human qualities like your character, your spirit, and so on. But in our world, this doesn't really have the same value. And so depending on where you're at least in our community levels, what's so important is to be able to get to how can we function in this world? So if we're living in the US, or like right now I'm in Austin, Texas, but oftentimes I'm at different places in the world. And a lot of times lately I've been hanging out with different indigenous cultures and so on who have never had any relationship with the world that we know. Their relationship is completely living off the land. And so that's a big spectrum of what creates value. Now, one thing that is super important for me is that we need to understand the nature of our value. So in order to understand the power of masculinity, the power of femininity, we have to get into the nature of those things. And our world is a distortion of that. It would tell you that our value is, what's being advertised to us and so on, and bank accounts and all that sort of things. What's interesting is we have to understand that value. We have to understand the value of our nature, but we also have to live in our world. So here in Austin, Texas, what is that? It's driving on the freeway. I got to go pick up my kids. I got to make money. I have to be able to afford certain things. I have to be able to fit in with this culture. If I'm going to fit in with this culture, I have to make money, and I have to sit within my class. A lot of people don't like to admit that and that sort of thing, but I have to be able to work within whatever that is. And that's huge. So that could be whatever economic bracket, that could be whatever social things that you go to. And so in order to do that, I need to make a certain amount of income to do that. That is important. Okay, that's huge in our world. However, if we have that as the only thing defining us, we will be left empty. And that's why everybody is empty. It's funny because I was talking about this. I make jokes about this on our calls. Onnit is right next to us. I used to be a coach in jiu-jitsu at 10th Planet, which was at Onnit. I know all the people there. I've interacted with them for many years, all that sort of stuff. But we always say that, some guy on steroids holding a staff, standing in front of a fire somehow is the image of what masculinity is supposed to be, and then the feminine has some other archetypal image that they fit, and then they can sell you on how to get that now I can be creative, and now I can be a winner in life, and all these certain things. Like value to masculinity and femininity is something which is sold over and over and over again to everybody, mainly because we are in massive deficit of it. This is where it gets back into our nature. For me, back in Austin, Texas, I need to make a certain amount of money to fit in and to just hit the baseline of functionality of that culture. That is really, 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 really important. Okay, that has to happen. In order to have true fulfillment, though, what I need is something completely different. And this is where I need to get back to our nature. So A lot of stuff that hopefully will be coming out on the channel. We'll see. I got to figure out how to articulate it in the right ways because it is very difficult. Like I said, I've been hanging out with a lot of different tribal people, indigenous people, and so on, and really trying to learn and understand. And a lot of it is shared with me so I can carry a message, not cheaply and irresponsibly over YouTube and so on, but in a way where there's at least something there. A lot of the times I'll take information from different people or different elders back to different elders up here in North America and that sort of thing. And that's usually how it works. And it's not actually for YouTube. But one of the things that I get from that is the way that we evolve to live and be happy with other people is so different than how we see it here. And even when you get into like a lot of the men's stuff and the red pill and so on, it's like, well, we were kings, man. I've been around people that are leaders and elders, and they don't, and of huge diversity of different tribes and whatnot. And they do not act like how a lot of the stuff that the manosphere would say it is, and that the king sits here with this and this sort of patriarchy, or if it's a matriarchal culture, these things will happen. This is not true. This is not what I see. And to translate that message back is very different. But what is important about everything is that human thought is very important. Human choice is very important. Having care in your life's work revolving around those things is very important. How we respect and connect with others is very important. How we can live in the moment is very important. How we can find our nature or get back to nature, not in some cool way so we can take a photograph of ourselves, but to actually be in touch with the earth or the water or those types of things and realize we're all a part of it. This is important. And these are important things to shape a way for happiness. Now, in our culture, because we have so many things going on and people may not have the same opportunities as me, being able to travel around and so on for this, I would say that another thing about our culture that is really important are things like therapy, things like coaching could have value. There's a lot of coaches that just say they are, but advice, community is huge, unity is huge, and finding out and discovering your personal identity is huge. Now, this is tricky because, like I said, when I go back to those people who are living off the land and so on, and have done this for centuries and centuries and centuries and have a way of life and do not have the same problems as us, a lot of the answers that we create in our culture end up being distortions. So it's a tough thing. I'll tell you this, it's one of the great dreams that I've had for many years, and now that it's kind of happening and hopefully it happens more, it doesn't really feel like the dream was supposed to feel. But way back when I was coaching dating and sex, when I started in 2006, I started under the pretense of getting back to our nature, that yes, sex and dating and courtship and all this stuff may have been found in clubs and being cool and all this sort of stuff, but I always diminished social value. I didn't think that that was important, as much as the whole industry said so. I thought that our nature in sex was to unify, and that what makes a man attracted to a woman is already born within us. And these things I based all social dynamics off of, and came up with a very, very thorough and in-depth program, which still exists to this day, and people work devoutly. But then when it came to trauma, when it came to addiction, when it came to divorce and custody, that has always been my thing, of mixing the modern world and these things. As now I've been introduced with people who live in this way and see it, I'm finding a lot of the stuff I was instinctually right about, but had no idea how simple and how unique these things were, that our nature is huge. When I talk about getting in touch with nature and going out in the water, or when I talk about building community, oftentimes in our cultures, we build a community for power structures, for, healing the pain of feeling insufficient or inadequate in our culture. And it's not how it is. These people built these things and live in our nature, or from what I see, in many diverse different ways. They're not all the same, but they do so without the pain of needing to prove themselves like we do have in our modern culture, or having the same traumas that we have in our modern culture. So it's an interesting thing, and I think that the next couple of years, that will be something to work out. If you guys haven't noticed, most of my divorce stuff actually happened 4 years ago. I'm just more or less talking about it in detail now. And so it might take 2 or 3 years to take whatever I journey off into and venture off into a lot of the stuff that I'm finding with the indigenous groups to create content 4 years later to make sure that I have clarity and wisdom towards it, which was a lot of the reason for holding off on a lot of the divorce and custody stuff. So interesting question. We have a massive force of nature within us that we need to tap into. In our culture, in our world, we have to hit a baseline of functionality. That means making enough money, feeling a part of, and interacting. But then we have to go to the things that actually do make us happy, which is our nature. Hopefully this helps. And I just realized about halfway through this video that I was out of focus, and I'm using a manual focus lens. So hopefully it's good enough for YouTube. Thanks so much for the comments. And of course, if you want to be a part of our communities, this is what we do. I just finished up on our Rising Man call. It went 2.5 hours today. And it's an amazing thing, an amazing group, and it's a good place to get started for you to fix your life. All right. Have a good one.